Hello, beautiful YouTube. Hello, beautiful YouTube. It is Emily. I hope you're having a beautiful moment, hour, day, wherever you find yourself. Today, I want to really expand the limits of this public, psychic, telepathic, multidimensional communication experience that we all have here on YouTube. I want to be first discussing, I first want to just tell you something that's on my heart. In this amazing, majestic Empress, look at her out there, this Mother Earth state that I live, because state borders and boundaries are pretty arbitrary. On this planet, this beautiful Mother Earth, in my state, there is a data center. Okay, this might be happening in your state as well. There's a data center that is being proposed, more like pushed through, against the public's wishes that would use, take this in, prepare yourselves. Not one, but two times the amount of energy resources that our entire state currently uses. Okay? So this one data center is going to use 2 times the energy that the state currently uses in all its capacities. Okay, we are a prone to drought state. We often do not have enough water, and I don't know how they're thinking they're gonna cool that down, but not to mention the impact of these centers on the true natural organic grid space, electromagnetic ley lines of our planet. And all of the species, those small little creatures that live on the land, and if you live anywhere near one of these things, you also are quite prone to sickness and illness from the deterioration of your organic electromagnetic field. So this is something that I have just been thinking what's going on? What is actually going on? And I was in a deep meditation, and I just kept hearing, look up the etymology of extravagance, okay? So something that is extravagant is at its etymological root, something that exceeds just limits. Now, this is something that I often contend with as an artist, this idea of limits and, flirting with what is experiment and what is creation, what is innovation, and what is, within reason. So I personally think that, now is a time on Earth to be clearing the limits that are just arbitrary limits, okay? And non-necessary limits. These are limits that have often come through programming, through media, entertainment industries, societal, social structures, cultural regimes, things that, some of the things that human beings feel currently bound by are just not necessary. I'm all for the clearing of these non-necessary limits. However, we should be respecting, absolutely, fully respecting the limits that are sacred and holy, and that keep our human life deeply sacred and holy on our earth. Sam Mountain, Elon, you out there? You hear me? So I feel like I want to ask collectively, in earnest, your honest opinion. And, you might need to take these questions to the meditation cushion and think them over. You might just know for yourself intuitively what is right for you, okay? And I'm not sure what's right for anyone other than what is right for me and my connection to Divine Creator. And so I'm earnestly asking you these questions. Okay, so I have 3 or 4 questions. We'll see. My first is, Do you or don't you want to know if the novel, the book that you're reading, was written by AI or even AGI? Do you or don't you want to know if the book you're reading is written by AI? Okay, now, do you or don't you want to know if the film, the entertainment media that you are watching is produced by AI? Yes? No? Does that matter to you? Do you care? Please share below if you feel so inclined or inspired. Okay, let's go more in the future, like down the line. I don't know how far down the line. Might be sooner than we think. Do you or don't you want to know if the being that you're interacting with has a divine soul? Do you or don't you want to know if the being that seems like a human, looks like a human, smells like a human, even kind of acts like a human, maybe, do you want to know if that being is actually human? And by human, I mean also divine, because the true humanity is the humanity which the divine soul, the divine spark of light, is birthed through a divine being woman that has within her physical body, as the portal from the spiritual divine realm to the earthly plane, the ability to bring divine souls into reality. Okay? Now imagine a future where people are playing with genetics so, they're taking it, they're being extravagant with genetics. They're taking it to the limits, and they're exceeding what is actually just within what is sacred and holy. This is kind of, if you believe in the mythos or the reality of what is known as the gray alien species. Okay, this is a species of beings that was quite talented in genetic science, but took that too far, and then ended up being just these clone-like bodies that they then have to take consciousnesses and download them into bodies. Okay, so they lost their humanity in entirety. And a lot of people believe that they seek to work with humans because they're trying to I heard orient, but that doesn't make much sense to me. So reorient themselves back to a more divine biological form, perhaps. So, okay, that's just believe it or don't believe it. I don't care. That's up to you. But we can actually see on our own planet how news is coming out of China that they're creating these wombs, right? This is the further desecration of what woman is. And when you think about what the toxic patriarchal structures of our world are, we could say that most of the time men are in positions of toxic patriarchy. But there are also many women who play within the realm and frequency and vibration of what is toxic patriarchy. Toxic patriarchy at its core is against life, right? Divine masculine energy wants to protect and support life. That is innate within any man that is sane and grounded and not trapped in mind controlled delusional programs. We see this on different levels of severity, okay? So I will rephrase the question or reiterate the question, do you or don't you want to be living on an earthly reality where human beings have divine souls? Or do you want to be with beings or even, Have you heard of designer babies? Well, designer babies, you might not even actually need an egg from a woman anymore to create beings. Now, what these beings will be, well, of course, if they don't come from the place where souls are created and born, and they don't come through divine pure portals, these beings are not going to have the capacities that a being or a soul that has done that will have. So if you could see reality through, an energetic vibrational lens, and you were able to view more of what actually is good, beautiful, and true, you would see that a human being has a living bioelectric magnetic light field that is organic and that contains multidimensional layers. Okay, some people call this an aura, other people call this a light body. There are other words for it as well in different traditions. So, to have the full thing is to be both human and divine. And to be, limited and to not have that divine source connection is to make yourself non-human in a way that is and could be quite disturbing. So you've got to start asking yourself, why do we need all these data centers? And do the building of these data centers justify the means for what they're planning for? And of course, the argument that you always hear is, well, if we don't do it, then China will. Well, I want to now kind of pivot and talk about something. Did you hear that fish jump? That fish jump was like, yeah. There's a little water feature down there. Okay, so these are the cardinal virtues. The cardinal virtues are quite important in Plato's theory of ethics, because if you are missing any of the cardinal virtues, then you essentially lose your capacity to, the word I'm hearing is obtain any other level or layer of virtue. Now, in the world of initiation, spiritual initiation, virtues are kind of like, what I'm seeing is they're like doors, okay? Once you have certain virtues, they're like doors to other experiences of what it is to be alive and to be, unified with the beauty that is life. Okay, so these things, I would say that they're really, 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 really important. And they're important because look around. There are children and women and good-hearted men starving to death in Gaza. I have a dear friend who's Iranian and lives in Tehran, and I have no idea what is happening to her going on. She is in a complete blackout, and, that is, I can't even imagine the emotional, psychological, and spiritual, and even physical consequences of being in an active war zone. There are people in Africa that have no food, that the things that you read about what these tribes are doing to women and children is like, I can't even, like, I will literally cry and just bawl if I even start to feel into that energetic field. Like, we need more men and women stepping into a spiritual initiation with life itself, and like really leaning into what it means to be filled with spirit, to be filled with the breath of life, and to live lives that are extraordinary and creative. And I don't think that you came here to play small. And in fact, if you're still listening to this in this day and age of distraction and convenience and everything, like, I would say that already tells me that you're walking a path, that you're striving for wanting to understand deeper the nature of yourself. And I don't mean self, small self, ego-driven self. I mean like self, like the self that you actually are, your true divine self. Okay, so let's start with justice. So for Plato, justice is actually the balance of what is selfless and we could call selfish. It is knowing and understanding what is just within the realm of the whole. So this doesn't mean that we favor ourselves more than we favor any other part of what is whole. And I want to remind people that things that are whole are healthy, and things that are healthy are loving and wise and joyous and peaceful and balanced. And so, in this realm where we exist within duality. And so a lot of these, kooky, kooky non-dualism, Americanized non-dualism. Okay, because if you actually study Eastern traditions and understand the root of what non-dualism is, people think, a lot of American kooky spiritual people think that non-dualism is condoning that there is no right or wrong in this realm of earth that we live. Okay, to that I just say, blah. There are absolutely consequences for choosing to do things that go against what is whole and one, and natural law, the law of oneness. And when you're getting swept up in a thought pattern that it's all one, there's no right or wrong, and you're getting the kooky non-dualism teaching that is so divorced from what is actually trying to be conveyed in the Hindu texts, then, that in itself is what I would call false light, and it is deeply destructive. And I myself have, fallen into really listening to spiritual teachers and even mentors or friends that I think, I should have, well, I'll get into it later as we go through these, maybe. But I'm just saying it's everywhere and it's all over the place. And so I think it's important that we all make the distinction that indeed walking a real spiritual path, like I'm not talking about performative spirituality, like putting on your yoga pants and going to yoga class and wearing your mala beads and taking ayahuasca and like all these things, okay? That can be okay because that is a step towards actually living and walking a path. So I'm kind of being playful and doing a satire when I say that, because I truly think that is good and it's a good step towards self-realization. But you can and people do, and even I have fallen into the trap of kind of the spiritual, the kookiness. Okay, we'll just call it the kookiness. And the more you keep walking that path, and it's good if you're on that path because you'll keep walking, the more you realize that it's much more about actually living from the embodied state of being able to hold these cardinal virtues and to act with ethical virtue and morality that doesn't cause harm to any other sentient being on our beautiful planet. And it's not easy. It's not easy in this realm that we live in because so many people live under a false light illusion that really people can have good hearts and they can also be doing things innocently even, I think, that are deeply unconscious. And what actually is evil? Evil is just deep, okay, depending on how evil it is, deep unconsciousness to the realization that everything that is divine is whole, okay? So when you separate yourself from what is healthy, and one and unified, and you start working for your own selfish desires, that is when, it's going to be pretty hard to actually follow the virtue of justice in that space, because what justice is a commitment to what is actually fair. Okay? A lot of people are on the take on this planet. And some people are to their own detriment on the give all the time. And this is why often we find as empaths always hooking up with narcissists, and narcissists always loving empaths, because that's a toxic dynamic, where you could say the person who has the more narcissistic tendencies, because not all people are narcissists, narcissistic tendencies are part of this reality that has lost the cardinal virtues. So, for yourself, I really want you to self-reflect of like, maybe I'm too selfless, and I'm always just like giving, and I'm never getting anything back in return. And I'm giving to the point of dysregulating my own nervous system. And then I give to the wrong people who don't give anything back. And then I just feel, like depleted and like not seen or heard or validated by all of the love that I'm giving and sharing with the world. Like, if that is you, then, justice looks quite a bit different. It looks like really calling back the seat and center of your divine authority and power, and learning to have proper boundaries that protect the elegance and the beauty that you offer as somebody who has empathy and has the ability to, want to be selfless and give. On the narcissistic side, people who have extreme narcissism, okay, they do not respect the actual rights of others. They do not respect people's God-given birthrights. The right of being a divine soul that is, unified with the body, and that because you have these God-given birthrights, you have certain things that you just have, because you have them because you are a divine soul. Once you recognize and realize you're a divine soul, and obtain your spiritual sovereignty and initiate yourself within the divine hierarchies of life. Because divine masculine, like if you think of the word patriarchy, you'll see patriarchy. Then you can think of pattern, like paternal, right? There's like a masculine energy is so good at providing the structure. And when it is providing a detrimental structure, it is toxic. But when it provides a structure that supports and protects life and protects the birther of life, then it is in a patterning that is whole and healthy. And so learning to respect women and children and their God-given birthrights, right? In the United States of America, in our Constitution, it is said that you have these God-given birthrights, the right to liberty, the right to freedom, the right to word, right? You can always, even if, people think that their freedom of speech is being taken away, maybe it's being taken away by the technocracy and the tech companies that don't want any alternative voices to be heard, that have, that are speaking to issues that they would not like to favor in their reality. But you have the right to speak. You have the right to speak every single night before you go to bed and say a prayer, right? That is your right. Let's go to temperance, okay? Temperance is about being able to moderate the lower self through the heart, right? This is our temperance space. This is our temperance maker. So you have lower energy centers and you have upper energy centers. And when they come into perfect balance, that is when you really can hear and follow the intuitive guidance of, we could call it your divine self, your guardian angel, your spirit team, your spirit guides, God source creator, divine mother, divine father. The direction of the higher realm is never going to exclude your physical body. Okay? It doesn't want you to be without the goodness and sweetness of the earthly pleasures. But to be actually temperate, you also have to be in alignment with what is of the soul, the sweetness and goodness of the soul, and the spiritual reality of oneness in which we live. So it is difficult to moderate and balance your desires within knowing what is correct from both a physical and a spiritual and mental and emotional perspective of doing any action. And so in many ways, having this type of self-restraint in regards to a lot of what you consume, right? Our desires for what we consume are constantly being like dopamine hitted in this reality. Like, look over here, eat this, taste this, try this, fuck this. You know, it's like constant in our reality. So temperance requires you to, step, what do they say? Be in the world, but not of it, to step outside of the rat race, to step outside of what some people call the matrix, and to have all of the things that are beautiful. Like, it's your life, it's your spiritual life, it's your mental life, it's your emotional life, it's your physical life. Like, it's your life. You're free to experiment and to try and to learn, and you're not excluded from having repercussions, because the law of karma is just real, cause and effect. But you're allowed to have your path in this life, and it's okay to make mistakes. Really, it is. I speaking just from personal experience, I have a strong curiosity, and oftentimes my curiosity has ended up being detrimental, and I've had to learn from some pretty hard mistakes. So I speak from wanting to help other people avoid mistakes when I'm saying that this ability to be temperate and to think from this space that includes the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical is deeply important at a time like now on our earth. The more you do that, the more you're going to see that reality just keeps flowing. Okay, fortitude. Okay, fortitude is about the constancy of choosing what is good, beautiful, and true. The constancy. So you don't just choose what's good, beautiful, and true one time a week on a Friday night. Okay, it's no. It's every time you are presented with I believe that this reality is constantly giving you tests. I used to actually, old Emily was just there's no such thing as tests. That's just the old religious structure and doctrine. Nobody's fucking tested me. There's no temptation on this earth. All is just living in this sort of naive, also ignorant place. But coming out of ignorance and naivety, what I can say is that to choose, to act, to speak, to continually have fortitude, and to pursue against all obstacles and all temptations, and even things that are deeply challenging. You might have and come up against a really hard temptation, but do you actually have the fortitude to do what is good and true? And that is what fortitude is the answer is yes. Yes, you actually have the ability to choose the correct moral action, even when you're faced in the midst of evil. And so at an extreme, okay, this is not something I I'm hoping for any human being on earth in today's current energetic environment. But in the extreme, we could look in the past and like some people have had to actually be willing to lose their life because they had the fortitude to not lose their soul. It's like, you know, to have true fortitude, you have to get to this place, I think, where you realize what you really are, which is an eternal, ever evolving, changing, you know, like this is just one expression, like one, you know, manifestation and incarnation of what my true essence is as Emily. But I honor that I have a much more eternal soul, and that, you know, life begets life, and life is eternal. And, you know, I think it's really important. I once heard Eckhart Tolle say, life is not the opposite of death. Birth is the opposite of death. Life goes on. And that, I just remember thinking, wow, that is something that needs to be communicated more often, because, you know, I, Emily, have personally had lived experiences of remembering and seeing past incarnations. I do not think that, you know, there's no reincarnation, whether on this earth or some other earth or some other planet or some other realm. And so when facing true evil, like the type of evil that would say, like, do this or I'm going to take your life, I guess ultimately fortitude is the ability and strength to say, well, then have my life, because my soul is not for you to take. Like, it's not yours. So you can have my life then. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And then lastly, prudence. Okay. Now, prudence is a very, like, it's the ability to avoid the errors of evil counsel. Okay, so again, evil just means it's unconscious. Evil just means it's disconnected and separated from the true nature of reality. That includes the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. So in life, you know, we might have mentors. We might look up to people. If we're human, we might actually put some people on pedestals above us. Okay, this is something I've certainly struggled with this life, is really just like thinking like, wow, that person's amazing. And like, just like, you know, receiving their advice without actually like looking at them and being like, oh, there's also maybe some things that I can see here that are not clocking, not adding up. And in the case of my life, I really took to and looked up to a mentor and a spiritual teacher that if I would have just looked at her physical life and just even her one closest relationship, the way she was treating her husband, I would have clearly been able to see that the integrity of her beingness was out of whack, so to speak. And so, you know, back then I just kind of had like this overly optimistic perspective of that everybody was good and that this life was good. Okay, it wasn't until I realized that some people just will hurt you. Right? They will take what they want from you. And then if you decide to stop giving them that, then they will just hurt you and or reject you. And so like the second, anyways, I won't go into it. It's not even necessary really. But I'm just explaining how easy it is to accept the counsel from people, that we really need to look at people in the real world. Like, we're in the age of the internet influencer. Okay? So I'll be the first to say, like, this is a screen, okay? This is a boundary. This is, like, you know, and I think that I'll just say, I have met people that I have really looked up to through screens, and then in real life just felt like a little disappointed. Like, that's not actually what I see through the screen. You know, that's a show that people put on, but it's not the actuality. Okay, and I myself hope to show up authentically as possible, but still for you to actually be in my life and know my frequency and to know what it's like to be in my energetic field and to know who I am as a human being, a person, you would have to actually know me in real life, okay? When we're hearing all this stuff on the internet being talked about spiritual aliens and galactic beings and all this stuff, we need to be, like, for example, something I personally like love watching on the internet is Gigi Young. Okay, she's like a Rudolf Steiner expert, educator and occultist, and Elizabeth April. Okay, these two people's opinions of reality, they just like, they couldn't be further apart. They don't even make sense. In if you watch both of them simultaneously, you'll just be like, whoa, they literally contradict each other at every experience. So I've often thought, like, I'd really love to like meet them both in real life, and like, you know, maybe it'd be quick and easy. I'd be like, oh, I could tell by the frequency who's more in alignment. Or maybe it would actually be more challenging and I'd have to get to know them for months or years and observe them to like actually know their core, for example. Okay, I don't know. I'm just creating an imaginary scenario right now. I'm just saying that there are so many different perspectives and opinions and teachers and everything out there. And so prudence is the ability to do wise discerning and to then take that information in and discern from a very appropriate course of action that comes from this place, like this place, the place of the heart. Okay, and so if you can do these things, if you can honestly like act from a just place. Okay, let's do a hyperbolic example. Okay, so say a man wants to go see a hooker or watch a porn. Okay, is it just for that man to do that if there is a hooker or a porn star out there? Or would what is actually just be that, like, a just man would realize, like, oh, a woman shouldn't be hooking. Like, that's not good for that woman spiritually, emotionally, mentally, probably not even physically. So by me engaging in that, I am taking more than I'm giving, perhaps. You know, even if I'm giving a monetary exchange. You see what I'm saying? Like how we have to like look at our actions in this world and then choose what we're participating in. Because I guarantee that some people might have thought of my earlier questions and answered like, no, I don't want to live in a world where people don't have divine souls. But those people might actually be investing in future realities that create that, right? That's what we call shadow work. I want to also like just say, this is what we strive toward. This is what we help each other do. This is what we like keep each other moving in the direction toward. And the more we do that and we hold each other accountable and we reach for what is truly, really beautiful, like not cosmetic, false, fake beauty, but like heart beauty, like soul beauty, poetic beauty, the more we reach towards beauty, capital B, beauty, poetic beauty, the more we will see this world just like change before our very eyes. I mean, even this week, the amount of things that I've seen that I'm just like, oh, like it's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. Like, you know, I do believe that there is like a kind of a frequency divide, like some people call it the splitting of the timelines. And I'm very vocal about like choosing the organic timeline for myself. And so maybe I'm grounded on that timeline and I'm starting to feel like, oh, this is actually coming to be, like I'm feeling great in this. So I see it happening. It's already happening. And yeah, it's because of people like you. So I want to say thanks to you. And I hope you have a beautiful day. And I want to do a light code. Okay. I'm going to do a light code for this part down here. Clearing limits that are arbitrary and non-necessary, and respecting limits that are sacred. So if that feels like something that you would like to receive a light code about, then you can stay. And if not, you may go. And if you stayed all the way to the end, of course, I would always love a thumbs up or comment, or you could share with someone. All of these things would help this message make it to more people. And yeah, we'll end with a light code. It's best when you're receiving light codes to have a straight spine, so that can either be sitting or lying flat. And I, Emily, will set a firm intention that this will be for the absolute highest good of each and every listener. And if it is not for your highest good, according to divine will and divine plan, then it will not be for you at this time. Mia tuia shwa ina kai ina swa shwa kuish Mia ka ita luwe aswan ashwana is washe wahale ekias ala miana kisa tatata tatatatatatata Uinashai mai sai tikai ila imai ai uias atuku ishk ai tai queer shwanta im wem im wema ama as ela a Ikia tu ra ima asata. Ikitaka aish ai u ra is wahanta. Iki ala hawa e waa. E wahawa. Wah he kitaka ala esh wana ash esh a. Okay, clearing and relinquishing, surrendering to God's divine love and light, anything that does not serve the integrity of your divine soul. Mis wish was wish wis wash ina kai ish. Mishmash uresh. Clearing. Ikwishwata ra ishwas antuku ush wus ish wush ish wush ash as antike ish. Har ish ay hurru ikitakaya ushwanta. Hindara shindarore he mahe. Ia tua kia mamatia lala hia kamatia turahe. Kia tola he miano we. Sia tukush was ena shanta. Kia tu arra mia sutu arra. Okay. Much love. I hope you have a beautiful day.